Hello and welcome to the video. In this video we're going to take a look at this thing here. This is a Furious FPV TrueD version 3.6. Now this is a diversity module that fits in a single bay in Fat Shark goggles. Available for lots of different style of goggles, but I am going to put them into my Dominator V3s. In the box you get a little simple manual. The online manual is far more detailed and easy to read. You get the module itself, which is already clipped into a clear plastic cover, and there's all the bits and pieces with a USB connector at the bottom, which makes flashing firmware a piece of cake. And then you get a couple of adapters, right angle and also 45-degree adapter, depending on what you're going to do. I've got this in because I want to replace a diversity adapter that I've got in my Dominator V3s, but that isn't working particularly well. It's the Fat Shark one and it is antenna diversity, and it's been fine, but I've really enjoyed using full diversity receiver on my Fat Shark HD3s. So in this video I kind of want to show you the latest version of the firmware, because the firmware has been updated. When I was doing my research, a lot of the things that I was looking at were out of date. So here it is installed in the goggles with a couple of Menace RC antennas, and it's all powered up and working beautifully, and it fits really nicely in the side of the goggles. If you compare that to the other diversity setup that I have, I love this. It works really great. This is the Holybro Hukia. No idea how you actually say that. Plug that in, see it fires up. I have the two antennas and each of the receivers is on a bay on either side, and we have a cable that goes between the two. Now this has worked really well and I love this system. It looks really nice, works so easy, but it's a little bit of a pain in the arse to install because you've got to use both of the bays, and that unfortunately isn't an option on these Fat Sharks. So if I just pop off the power, see it all fits in the right hand side, and I'll show you why this is important, because on the left hand side I happen to have my head tracker installed. This is the Fat Shark head tracker. Again, I've got a video talking about how you install and set that up, and that's great for those models where I actually have some kind of gimbal or something installed and I want to control it using the head tracker function. So I didn't have the option, unfortunately, in these goggles of using something like a multi-bay solution, so I had to plump for something like this. And the really cool feature of this, which kind of sold it to me, is that when I plug it in, it shows my painless pill. And the Furious FPV guys were very nice enough. I kind of pinged them an email and said, if I bought one of your units, could you program it to show my logo? And they very kindly said yes and did a custom firmware for me. So let me show you how easy it is to install. This is how the goggles originally were laid out. This is the original Fat Shark diversity receiver. It is antenna diversity, so it isn't particularly good. So all I did was pop off the cover and remove this diversity receiver, and I'll put that in the Fat Shark box. You never know, it might come in handy again in the future. And then it's a case of installing and just pushing this new Furious FPV D3.6 into position. Now I found this quite tricky because you can't quite see where the pins are because of the size of the cover. So take your time with this, and the clips are nicely designed, so you really have to make sure that you've got everything lined up before you press it home, because it tends to go in with quite a snap once those clips pass the outside of the goggles, but it does mean that it isn't going to come off. Once it's installed, then the next job is going to be popping on some antennas. It just works brilliantly. It's what I use pretty exclusively here now. I'll put a link in the description if you're going to be getting something like this diversity setup from Furious FPV. Let me zoom in and quickly show you what the menu looks like. This is the new menu, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to make the video, because lots of videos kicking about this Furious FPV system, and the menus are all the old version of the firmware. So as I plug it in, we get the painless pill. And once it has booted up, then there is the main screen that it always defaults back to, showing me the band that I'm on and also the different amounts of signal on the two antennas. And to go in the menu, you press the middle button and you navigate through the pieces using the top and bottom buttons, and then press the center one. So you can actually manually select the channel just by going through, just like you do on lots of other things. Then we can use smart search. That's very good if you're at the field. You can see you transmitting and you can see the different channels available, and you can pick one. You also have the band scanner, which will scan the entire band. At the moment I haven't got an FPV transmitter turned on. You can see where I am, it's pretty quiet, which is good. Then we have the settings menu, and in here you can change the warning for the low signal strength. You can also change the auto lock to make sure that you don't accidentally bump one of the buttons while you're flying. You've got the units, you can change those from dBm to percentage. I find percentage just seems to work for the way my brain works. You can also then change the call sign, that's the thing that scrolls around in the main screen. And then you can also change the speed that it changes between the different antennas, and that is one of the big changes in the latest version of firmware. And then you've got the calibrate button. Now the calibration routine is you take both the antennas off, you fire up an FPV transmitter, put it a number of feet away, and then that allows the system to individually calibrate each of the receivers without the antenna attached, and to give you a good baseline that it'll use to then use the diversity settings and switch between the two in operation. Have a look at the manual, it goes through the process, it's pretty straightforward, but you definitely need to do that when you first take it out of the box to make sure that the diversity system will switch and change in the optimum way. And you can also save different channels as favorites, so you can flick to them quickly by just pressing the buttons up and down on the main screen too. So I've been flying with this thing about 4 weeks now and put it through its paces, and I must admit it works really well. I'm pretty impressed. It's simple to install and set up. It's clear and easy to read display. Even in bright sunshine, it's a piece of cake to read. You're not squinting at anything. I haven't used the original version of this firmware, so I can't comment on what it used to be like, but from the playing that I've been doing here, the diversity algorithm seems to work really well, and I haven't had any problems. It seems to be clicking across. I'm not getting any kind of drop frames or weirdness in the goggles. It's just seeming to work. Again, fantastic if you have a head tracker installed and you only want one bay used in your goggles. It does mean that it can be a little bit cramped when you put both the antennas on, but if you're careful, particularly if you're using something like the Menace RC kit, then you get all the cables so you can route everything around. But it does mean for those of you that want a head tracker too, it's a great solution. The firmware upgrade process is pretty straightforward, and it's all covered on the Furious FPV manual. They do also make some of these custom versions that have been requested public. At the moment I haven't requested this one to be public, but if you want me to make that happen so that this custom firmware is available on the Furious FPV website, leave a comment down below and I'll send them an email and get it sorted. I do like the fact that there is a warning for when the goggles are left on, so if I accidentally leave it plugged in, and that can happen to me when I'm on the bench, particularly when I'm playing with stuff and trying to sort stuff out, I will just leave the battery plugged in, and if I go and make a cup of tea and get distracted, I can be away from the desk for 30-40 minutes. Having the goggles kind of beep at me and let me know that there's a problem is great. It kind of brings me back and gets it unplugged before I completely over discharge the Fat Shark battery and then have to mess around with a 9-volt battery trying to restore it so I can charge it again. And talking of power, it doesn't seem to be a big problem. I haven't really noticed any particular additional drain or shorter battery life flying out in the fields over the last 3 or 4 weeks while I've been using this. Only a couple of considerations. The clear cover isn't a great fit. This isn't the first version of this from Furious FPV, and despite that, the FPV module cover has big gaps at the top and bottom. Just a bit of a shame really. It would have been nice if that was a slightly better fit. Don't forget, it doesn't come with antennas, so you will need some, and at the moment by default there's no customizable startup logo. You have to get Furious FPV to create one for you, but hopefully the software in the future will allow you to upload some kind of bitmap and integrate that into the firmware in order to flash it onto the module. So I've got my fingers crossed that they do that in the next version, because it's always cool to have your kit start up and show your logo or your pilot name. If you found that video useful or like the content, then please hit the like and subscribe button down below. If you want to go the extra step, you can become a Patreon of the Painless 360 channel and help provide support for what I do here. All the videos created here are put into playlists, so if you're interested in a particular topic, have a look at the playlist, and they all are organised in there to make them easier to use. If you're not sure if there's a video for your particular problem or topic you want to know more about, then add Painless 360 to the Google search term that you're interested in, and that should find the video, article or content about the particular thing that you're interested in having a look at.